Welcome to our international podcast. Below the belt, who vex lose, who vex is your face. Welcome. That's what we tell you. Welcome to each and every one of you guys. How are things where you are? Do let us know how things are where you guys there. Please let us know that. How's the weather, for instance? Let us know how the weekend started. The national capital city where we broadcast live from. It's 25 degrees outside. That's what people telling us. And we're talking about the local meteorological office. We're talking about weather.com. Those are the folks we rely on. 26 degrees outside, rather. 26 degrees outside, and they're telling us we have to expect scattered showers, thunderstorms, rather. Expect a thunderstorm. They say it's a 6 to 9% chance it's going to rain. A 6 to 9% chance it's going to rain. Let us know if you guys are receiving us loud and clear. Wherever you guys are receiving us from, let us know you guys are receiving us loud and clear. Or when Don Cook says good afternoon to all viewers, I would add valid in front of viewers, all valid viewers. We only accept incredible comments. Antwerp, good to see you. And Chisel Chipper, right? It says Antwerp, New York is in the house. Antwerp, New York in the house. We have Sharon Filbert as well. We got Hazley King, Susan London. We have Edward Gonzalez. He's here as well. We got Allison Osborne. A lot of folks, man. Marilyn King. We got as well. We got Siobhan McDonald, Sandra Ford, Rock and Coming. Irma Holder is here as well, guys. And we're so privileged. Yep. Siobhan says she's hearing us loud and clear. I see Maureen Coppin Williams is here as well. Iron Harry is here. It's not iron, Iron. I-E-N. Iron Harry. Ian. Dwayne Welcome is here as well. Karen Black has showed up. Good to see you, Karen. Good to see you, Trevor Calendar. I see Derek David is here too. Guys, rock and come in. Smash that emoji button. Share the damn live stream. And let's move along. We're talking dollars and cents today. The PPP and that IMF report that came out over the weekend. Elton Burgess is here. I see Penelope Hudson is here as well. Kyla Ronalds is here. I see also we have Cherry Basket. Greenwich is here as well. Edward Rose we have, and Kyla Ronalds. Guys, good to see each and everyone. Tiffany Drake, good to see you. Fitz Gulliver, great to see you. Good to see. I see Glenford Gordon as well. Trying to give me a tongue twister here now. Fitz Gulliver, Glenford Gordon, Coletta Reynolds, Candy Lillian Indigit has rocked and has come in. She has came in. Guys, great to see wherever you're joining us from. And we just want to make sure that we are on all the right places. So we're going to take a share break. Get us shared in all the right places. Hope you guys are being shared in all the right places as well. Good to see you folks wherever you folks are joining us from. Share the damn live stream. Smash that emoji button, guys. And let's get the move on. Let's get to the move on. Good to have you guys wherever you folks are joining us from. Really great to have you. Do let us know what kind of weekend you guys have had. We're going to share at our end and just make sure we're going through to all the right places. And then we're going to be good to go with you fantastic, incredible, lovely folks. Rock and come in, my peoples. Rock and come in. Rock and come in. Wherever you guys are joining us from today, we're so privileged to have you guys on with us. Beautiful, smart, and intelligent people. That's how we do it. And folks, I got a little surprise for you. Got a little surprise for my peoples. Got a little surprise for you because today we're going to be joined. Today we're being joined by the one and only Amanza Walton Desire. Yep. We're going to be joined by Amanza Walton Desire. Amanza, are you there? Rock to the come in. Rock and come in, Amanza.
Sharon, what's up?
I there. I there like a devotee. We there. Folks, are you hearing Amanza? Let us know if you're hearing Amanza. Please and thank you. I want you to say another word. We want to know if you're hearing Amanza. If you heard Amanza just now, let us know if you heard Amanza loud and clear. Please let us know. Yep. Clara Ronald said, Rock and come in. Good afternoon to John Jones. Good afternoon to Marlon Griffith. Guys, did you hear Amanza there? Amanza, just say something, man. Say something. Some of them probably shock and think they're dreaming.
Hi, Sharon, are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, I see John Jones says we're hearing her loud and clear. That's what we want. Loud and clear. Loud and clear. So, Amanza, we've had tons of questions since your very unceremonious departure. Since your unceremonious
I
departure.
know,
We
I
had tons of
know,
questions. So just tell
I
them where
know.
they just tell them where it went, right? We told them we said man's got a love life too. Man's wanted a year honeymoon in the she business.
Actually, I was laid up with a sport injury,
Mhm.
but I'm on the mend, doing so much better,
You on the
and
Mets?
just ready to
You on the
to
Mets?
to to be back.
Mm-hmm. 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 We're so happy. We're so happy. Your voice sounds very strong. And folks are saying they're hearing you loud and clear. You sound very energetic, which is good. We love that.
Yeah, listen, God has been faithful.
Mhm.
I'm doing well. I'm doing very, very well, thank God.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Folks, as a man is here, don't share it for me. Share it for share it for Bazos. Share the damn live stream. Smash that emoji button, guys, and let's get a move on. A couple things we want to pick up on, and then we're gonna be talking about dollars and cents. The PPP and that IMF report. IMF report. Imagine how was the week? How was the month started? We're in a new month. Believe it or not, it's June 6th already. Already,
Can
already.
you imagine? Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday, my youngest turned 16, so it was a hectic,
What?
um,
I know.
you know,
I want to put.
day by
I
me.
I want to pretend you didn't say youngest and 16.
Yes, yes,
I want to
that's
pretend.
what I said.
uh-huh. What happened?
And about a little while.
Hear the question? When happened? And in my mind, I answered myself 60 years ago.
60 years ago. 60 years ago.
I answered myself. The folks, y'all hearing this story here? Hmm? I sure you got some concerns of your own. I sure the folks got some concerns of their own. 16 and the youngest. My Lord, you've kept well.
Yes.
The Lord has kept you well.
He has been faithful, man. I cannot complain. I'm on the mend. Miss you guys. Happy to happy to be back. I'm still wearing some accoutrements, but they'll be off in a couple of days, and I'll be back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, now that you mentioned you carry your age, Jimmy, you gotta be wearing any at this stage of your life, you could be wearing anything. Don't let you tell me your youngest is 16. At this age and stage, any number of things could be propped up. So, we're thankful that you're
Yeah,
on the mend. You're on the
yeah. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm very active. I work out a lot. I
Mhm.
lift, and so I think I might have overdone it in that regard,
Mhm.
and so an old sports injury sort of flared up and had me incapacitated for a few weeks. But like I said, I'm back. I'm doing better.
And we are tremendously
Gotta
thankful.
do some follow up evals, but other than that, we
Uh-huh.
there, we there, we there, we there.
Yes, yes, precisely. Both Rita and I have birthdays coming up at the end of the month. So, like, there's a lot of good people born in June. And at my age too, I mean, I want to do a full medical this month here, because too often we take our health for granted. I know we always talk about these issues and say that as gynaes, all we do is work hard and then we're dead. We don't even take a little vacation, go and see some more of this country, check on our health, get a physical every now and again, that kind of stuff. No, 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 no. We do a lot of self diagnosis. Your neck back out, you say, oh, it's pressure, I can take something, and you self diagnose. Your foot hot in, oh, it's the cold floor, you put on a socks, and and you go on down the road.
Absolutely. We
Right.
have to. No, but on a serious note, I think we often forget that we have to pay attention to our health. We operate in a high stress environment, and that takes a toll on, you know, what our health in ways that we can't tell. And so for men, a prostate exam, of course, is so important once you get to a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
For us women, mammograms and certain screenings are so important. You know, Cheryl, I see in the comments there's a raging debate about whether I started early.
Ah,
I
ah,
see somebody is asking
ah,
if
ah.
I'm married.
You can go right ahead and answer them
It's very
if you want to
interesting.
provide clarity on these many varied issues. You go right ahead. Don't mind us. Don't mind us.
Somebody said, "Oh, start early." No, I had my children in my mid to late 20s,
Hmm.
so that's not an
Yeah,
early start by any
yeah,
stretch.
yeah.
But I've been about a little bit,
You've been
so
about a
you
little bit.
know.
Yeah, I started late. I think I started relatively late. I had my first child. We had our
Yes.
first child at I was 28. I think I started. Ah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I was a little worried at one point. I could say,
Yeah.
I was a little worried. I just decided to make up for it. 3 months later,
Yeah.
we out
Yeah.
here, we out here, we outside. We outside. Right? Amanda looks well. Amanda
But
has kept herself very well, which is a good thing. It's like
mine is the keeping grace of God, believe me.
you know what? We had Kamal Pasalan on our morning program the other morning, and somebody was talking to me yesterday, and the person was asking me, "Who is the little girl you had in the program?"
Little girl.
I said, "Who's the?" I trying to box me mind. Who's who little girl? Uh,
Nah.
I said, "Kamal,
But
oh
Kamal is
Lord."
such a gem.
If you know Kamal's young, like you, her youngest son's age. But God is keeping him.
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, I don't deb out. Yeah, I don't just deb out.
Yeah.
If your body
And
taking a
avoid
certain night,
night
you.
Jew and so on and so forth.
Yep. You have done well. You've done well. And one of the things we've been talking about, as we've been talking about birthdays and so on, is this month we always tell our listeners and viewers, whatever's your goals, especially half year, you got to be reviewing some of those things you set out to do in the year start and see how far you've come. But even for your goals for the month, the time is running so fast. You got to pick up the pace. Pick up the pace. Don't look to the left nor the right, but just be focused on those things you set out
No,
to do.
you have to be deliberate. You have to be deliberate, and you have to manage your energy. You have to decide what will take your energy, because you have a finite amount, and
Hmm.
so you
Hmm.
have to dedicate it to where you will be most effective. You have to minimize distractions and keep focused. Otherwise, the year will come to an end, and you'll not have achieved what you set out to
Hmm.
at
Yep,
the
yep,
beginning of the year.
yep,
So
yep.
it's about focus. Yeah, hold a
Hold a
focus.
focus. And that's our encouragement to folks today. Hold a focus. Hold a focus. Folks, before we get into our topic for discussion today, the people in that IMF report we saw come out recently, we can't even throw off all of what we want to talk about, but in subsequent programs we will. But we're going to make our foray into this discussion about this report. We're seeing here that they're saying for well, Division 4A, as the police categorizes it, there's been a 31% reduction in serious crimes, and this is being reported by the regional commander, Mr. Simon McBean. And he's saying again, there's a 31% reduction in serious crimes. And serious crimes, according to the Ghana Police Forces, murder, robbery on the arms, robbery with violence, robbery with aggression, larceny from the person, break and enter, burglary, rape, kidnapping, and I don't know, maybe a lot of crime going on reported, because not from what we read in the daily papers, not from what you
You
read in the daily
see,
papers at all. 31% reduction.
Sharon. Yeah, there seems to be a disconnect between the level of safety that citizens feel
Hmm.
and what the stats are showing.
Hmm.
And you rightly said these stats depend on reports. Reports to the police are directly linked to the confidence that the public has in the police.
Mm-hmm.
Because you ask the average Guyanese citizen, they will tell you that they do not feel safer. In fact, they feel far less safe.
Mm-hmm.
And what the police force has to understand is that the perception of the people is their reality. If I
Correct.
don't feel safe in my
Yeah.
community, that is my reality. And that
Mm-hmm.
is what will inform the way I act. Um, so it really does sometimes rub you the wrong way when they do not indicate that this is based on reports received
Mm-hmm.
because it is an important qualifier.
Mm-hmm. And as he said that, I'm trying to think in my mind, and then going through the report, is what did the police force put in place that would have mitigate spiraling crime, if so? Um, because it was just a couple days ago, a hop, skip, and a jump, that the U.S. ambassador was talking about their what you call it, their folks who were here, not advising them not to visit Saybrook Market, not to visit Border Market. And I don't know what great strategy was put in place since then that would have saw, um, you know, this kind of reduction, or if this is in spite of the police force, they would have
You
seen
know,
this
and they did issue a travel advisory and a security advisory.
in addition to that.
I believe that shortly after there was some ramping up of police on foot patrol in the specific areas mentioned, but whether that has been sustained is not um, immediately apparent. Um, so, Sherrod, I think by and large, what we are seeing, if we're going to be very honest with ourselves, is just a complete breakdown of law and
Yeah,
order. You saw it at the few shows that they had
yeah,
recently. There
yeah.
seems to be an embracing of just public misconduct,
Hmm.
almost a veneration of it. And it is something that should concern society as a whole,
Hmm.
not just one sector, not just one segment, but the society as a whole. And what continues to happen, I'm afraid, is that because we insist on a tit for tat, we consume our energy on doing just that instead of finding solutions to these national problems.
Correct, correct. Very much so, very much so. And it's something to think about because again, the reports are out there on social media on a daily basis. People read the press, and you're seeing some of these very issues that they're talking about um, on a very very pervasive, ubiquitous manner. And so for them to say now that by 31% serious crimes and then outlining what serious crimes are, you begin to wonder if you are really seeing what you see on a daily basis. If people are being honest with what they post and the kind of stuff, it's quite interesting, quite interesting, quite
It's
interesting.
very very interesting. What I know is that citizens will not benefit from posting on truths about whether they've been victims of crimes. And generally there are exceptions, of course. And so I think the population is being put into cognitive dissonance because we know what we experience on a daily basis, but here you have the authorities saying something else. So it's a very dangerous issue, I think, that we have to confront and deal with.
Yep. No doubt, no doubt. And this is one of the issues we're going to continue to cover as we're covering, a whole host of other issues. And I'm just trying to find my way in my notes to make sure I cover the two things we wanted to cover as we begin the program. But again, just really and truly looking at some of this and thinking, what really happening here? What is really happening here with the Ghana police force? Because anybody who lives in this city, and again, Division 4 covers from all of that is Georgetown, really and truly, from what do you call it, Macdoom on the East Bank. It's Macdoom, um, no, Agriculture on the East Bank, to up on the East Coast here, right? Basically, all that is Georgetown. That's Division 4. And we who deal with this information every day, I find myself not being easily persuaded by what is being said here at all, not being easily persuaded at all.
Yeah,
uh,
I would want to see. I'd want to see the. I'd want to drill down some more on that data so that you can look at it by sectors, you can look at it by areas, you can look at the number of reports, you can look at the number of cases solved. So I would want to drill down on that data because it's very, very important.
yep, yep. The other issue we were following, which in of itself has bearing on our topic of discussion, the PVP and the IMF report, is that the students out of Region 7, these students for the Fox Secondary School there in the DC Caesar Fox Secondary School there in Waramadang in Region 7, and the poor quality of food. I mean, we were shocked over the weekend to see what the students have to eat there, um, and wondering what is happening with the state of the economy. And we're going to be joined, Amanda and listeners, by Mr. Elson Lowe. And Elson hosts a fantastic program called The Lowdown. And Elson is going to join us. He's an economist by profession, in practice, and trying to make sense of some of these issues because it has some effect with what the IMF is saying to the PPP regime, and some other, um, I would say, macro and micro issues. But Elson knows about these kinds of issues, and we're going to raise some of them with him. Um, Elson, a very good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you.
I was just telling the folks that we're so privileged to have you join us. Um, Economist by training, by practice, and also fantastic host of the Lowdown.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be on.
Awesome, great to have you. Elson. We're picking up a discussion from the whole this issue that happened over the weekend. Before we get into the discussion proper on the PPP and the IMF report, at the Waramadong Secondary School, as a microcosm of people who are hurting economically here. You wouldn't think that this could be an oversight of this nature because it didn't seem to be day one of these students at the DC Caesar Fox Secondary School in Waramadong Region 7, where they're eating shine rice, which just look like plain rice to me because shine rice looks different. At least one I know. And little pepper, little ketchup on the side. And this is from an administration that says they care, they care. And, when this was posted on social media, I think the installed Minister of Education, Priya Malichan, said that if this is true, then she went on from there. I mean, you are the minister. You're in a position to know. I think in law, Amanda, you call it constructive knowledge. You're in a position to know, but you don't care to know. You don't. So the law imputes knowledge. You're in a position to know if this is true. You could pick up a phone and call somebody and find out. Right? So it's a microcosm in a large sense of what is happening in the large economy. So we can talk about that with a brief comment, and then we'll get into some of what the IMF report, preliminary report, came out over the weekend and discussed about the economy and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it is partying for some, enjoying yourself for some, and others have to eat shine rice. That is the situation. in the country. You can't even get any meat on your plate. When you say a microcosm of the broader situation, it's concretely what we see in Guyana is that we have had a largest budget in the country's history
Mm-hmm.
and the largest budget by some distance,
Mm-hmm.
but very, very few provisions really to help people to deal with the shocking increase in the cost of living. And so, as a result of seeing very few provisions, you're seeing all over the economy people cry out about how difficult it is to make ends meet. Now, this example of Shine Rice sounds to me like even within the ministry budgets, the government has not made adequate provision for the things that matter, the basics,
Mm-hmm.
but rather is focused on all manner of vanity projects and so on,
Mm-hmm.
and things that are not concretely tied to the structure of Guyana's economy. I've mentioned on previous shows and so on that there's not been enough of an emphasis on training Guyanese to get involved in the oil and gas industry, and that we may have local content laws and local content aspirations, but unless we train enough people to fill these posts, we'll end up with a lot of foreign folks in those posts throughout the entire period of oil production. So it seems to me that the ministry is not focused where it needs to be focused, and one of the side effects is seeing these types of nonsense.
Yep, yep, yep. I see somebody on social media asking whether this was a dish by choice. I mean, who says, I can just eat plain rice? I mean, we've had these cultures with us for a little while now. I've never known one of the Amberian dishes to be plain rice. I've never known that. Shine or otherwise.
Sharon, I think it
Hands up.
is indicative of the contempt with which this government operates, particularly as it relates to all businesses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is a boarding school, like I understand. It means that it ought to be meals and provision are budgeted for.
Mm-hmm.
So there would have had to have been some kind of breakdown somewhere along the line
A big breakdown.
that would
A big breakdown. You know?
result in students having to plain rice, ketchup, and pepper. It is inexcusable and it must be fixed
Mm-hmm.
urgently.
Mm-hmm.
This is a school that is sustained with education because it provides both. So it is not subject to the economics that the ordinary man will feel because it is funded from the public purse. There is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely no excuse for it. So somebody has to be held to account and somebody has to be held to account very swiftly. I am concerned about, like I said, the contempt with which our indigenous brothers and sisters are being treated.
Mm-hmm.
I am following and observing this situation about Reynal, whose family are unable to locate his body up to now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it has been found again. An indigenous man.
No, no. That matter is still under investigation.
And who's being held to account? How
Correct.
is the person involved and out on bail? There is something ludicrous happening in our society. And yet on social media, you see the most asinine comments. We have
Mm-hmm.
to be careful. We do not allow politics to cause us to lose our humanity and our humanness towards each other.
Mm-hmm. 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 Guys, let
But
us know.
I digress.
Guys, let us know if you're hearing our guests clearly, please, because I think we're getting some feedback at one end, and we want to make sure that we're all hearing clear and we're not being subjected to any harsh feedback. We're gonna try to see if we can correct some of it at our end, if possible. Um, so our apologies there. So there is that happening at that one end. We also following some reports as we segue into the fuller discussion on the IMF report of some officers there at the GRA, the Ghana Revenue Authority, being under investigation for selling fake, quote unquote, fake licenses. Selling fake licenses. So we are watching that too. But this report came out, which is a preliminary report over the last weekend, Friday into the weekend, about some of the IMF findings as regards to several facets of our economy. And one of the things that the IMF said here is that it was very concerned about the pace of spending. And again, I remember when this matter was raised, Elson and Amanza, um, Mr. Jagdew, I think in one of his press conferences, laughed it off that people were concerned about, the pace of spending because, I guess in his mind, once he's spending money, all is well and good, right? But the IMF was connecting here the amount of money that is being pumped in the economy with the fact that that can send up the inflation rate and which is partly responsible for the high cost of living you have. I mean, I'll take Elson first. Make sense of this for us. Perhaps put it in better context for us, and then we can go from there.
Yes, absolutely. So what we've seen Italy is an increase in the national budget, not by the usual 10 to 15% that you see across the history, but by a 4%, almost 50%, I believe, upon recollection, increase in the budget from one budget to the next. Now, if you see such a sharp increase, a three times more increase than you would normally see, that is, of course, going to raise the question as to whether the economy can efficiently absorb those funds, or whether that's going to cause, at least in the short term, a spike in prices and inflation. So that is one concern. But you can spend substantial sums without worrying too much about inflation if you have appropriately put aside funds to deal with inflation mitigation. And that is something that we've seen barely any of in the national budget. In fact, we've seen less than 1% of the national budget, which again is the largest by far in the country's history, go towards mitigating these cost of living effects. Less than 1%. And so, as a result of that, you've really got a situation where the money is being thrown towards a lot of capital, a lot of infrastructure projects, and so on and so forth, but not actually being directed to dealing with what I see, and I think many people see across the world, as the most pressing issue of the day, which is the cost of living issue, the inflation issue. In fact, you've had various heads of state say, I think Biden most recently said, that his number one domestic priority is dealing with the cost of living issue. So that doesn't seem to be a priority for the PUP. They're happy for Guyanese, the average Guyanese, to bear the brunt of this. And in fact, they've spent 4 to 4 times more on capital projects, things like infrastructure and building and so on, than they have on cost of living mitigation. So that is essentially the broad framing of what is going on and why there's a significant inflation problem. However, we must also recognize that we are in an interesting and unusual situation because of the war in Ukraine. However, we have not seen any robust efforts taken to go above and beyond given this unusual situation. And in fact, no supplemental budget to address this has been passed. So unless the PUP somehow knew that there would be a war in Ukraine when they crafted that budget, then this budget is out of date, and it is in no way meets the needs of the circumstance. So that is again something that I think is very concerning. We've seen wheat prices jump up 40%. We've seen the price of oil go through the roof. And as a result of that, we've now got a situation where the most pressing issue was always cost of living. It has gotten to be even more acute. The government has dumped fuel on the fire by spending a lot but not focusing on the cost of living issue. And so standards of living have really fallen in Guyana quite substantially over the past 2 years the PPP's been in office, but even more so in the past, I would say, 5 or 6 months. And I'll close this off by reminding your viewers that, it seems to be a secret, but Guyana produces oil. And so, since we're benefiting from this higher
Mm-hmm.
oil
Mm-hmm.
price, you'd think that we'd want to have more robust measures in place to help Guyanese to ride out this storm, even as much as the country is doing tremendously well in terms of the additional revenue and the additional expected growth.
Thanks, Elson. The wording in the report, from what we see here, is while pressing development challenges still face the country, a large surge in public investment could add inflationary pressure, affect competitiveness of the non oil economy, and lead to an eventual loss in foreign reserves and might not be sustainable over the medium term. This is according to this IMF report. Amanda, what do you make of it? I know it's not your forte per se. Amanda, go right ahead.
Sharon, yes, I'm here. Sharon, I think our listeners simply have to go back to my Budget 2022 presentation to really understand that the fact is that the PPPC government, they do not care about the people of Guyana. And it appears to be something that we do not want to admit, but it is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Show me
Mm-hmm.
where you spend your money, and I will tell you what you value and what your values are. The PPPC, as Elson has said, has made no attempt at doing anything to cushion the impacts of inflation on the ordinary Guyanese. What they are doing is going around and engaging in tokenism by giving handouts. The Guyanese people do not need only handouts, they need a targeted program, they need a comprehensive program that will help them to continuously cushion the effects of what we are seeing today and to help them to at least be able to meet the cost of living. I mean, Elson can break it down far more eruditely than I could ever because I'm no economist. But this is basic common sense. You are benefiting from the high oil prices. How is this reflected in the improvement of the standard of living of your people? The answer is that it is not, and it is not reflected, and there are no measures to ensure that it is reflected because the PPPC, they do not care about the people of Guyana. They are interested in enriching themselves, and with a broken procurement system and money, billions and billions and billions being thrown behind infrastructure projects, it is the perfect storm for the heist that they are executing currently on the people of Guyana. Let's be
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
clear about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the president goes around with his one off, two off tokenism instead of sitting down with people who know and understand and say, how do we come up with a program that will see our people being empowered on a continuous basis to weather the storm?
Mm-hmm.
Governments that care about their people, that is what they sit down and do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not go to a particular group and give them this and go to a particular group and give them that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we must understand what they're doing psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
You give the fisher folk a grant, other people who need it just as badly don't get it. What are you doing? You're setting that one group against the fisher folk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have no difficulty with any Guyanese collecting sums that will help them to weather this storm. What I have a difficulty with is the sinister motive behind what the PPPC is doing.
And we can
And
talk
this is
about
why
that.
I encourage us that we have to look at this thing critically. It's not just about walking around and handing out money, but you're choosing certain sectors because you want to go back to say when people speak up about it that they're being divisive and that they're being racist and all manner and sorts of things. And not understanding that a rising tide floats all boats. And if you are a smart government, you will ensure that every Guyanese, not just certain sectors, are being assisted in weathering this very, very difficult time that every Guyanese, working class and poor, are finding themselves in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Guys, Sir Arthur Lewis, who is a famed economist out of St. Lucia, and who won, believe it or not, the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1979, the year I was born, 1979. Sir Arthur Lewis says something that I read years ago that has stuck with me. He says that asking questions is the principal business of university people. And I know both Elson and Mans have been to university. He says if we do not ask important questions simply because they are dangerous questions, we cease we cease we cease to be honest, and a dishonest scholar is a menace to society. I want to ask a dangerous question. There's a and I'm using the word negligence within the legal context in which you got to establish certain what you call what is it limbs to establish the tort of negligence. One is a duty of care, and Elson specifically, was the government negligent? I know, you know, these guys ain't dunce. They ain't silly. You got Ashney there. You got Colasar doing something in economics in the government. You got Jagnew. Three uh, past and one current, past current finance ministers. They must know that if you pump a lot of money into the economy, this is going to happen. Inflation means same money in your pocket, it's buying less out there. Cost of living goes up, right? But they're willing to suffer that at the expense of some other things, right? Could it be that this is no fluke? This is deliberately doing this thing, knowing what one of the side effects could be, the hardships, and in so being negligent, Mr. Economist.
What I would say is this. I think that there is a heavy reliance on a trickle down approach to economics within the PVP, and indeed, you've heard some prominent members of PVP say that that is something that they expect, that the benefits will trickle down to the average Guyanese. Now, if you're going to use that model, you have to be relying very heavily upon substantial employment gains in order for people to actually be able to benefit. Now, that's not what you've seen in Ghana, where the unemployment rate remains very elevated. We've not dropped to a 3% unemployment rate like you're seeing in a lot of developed countries. We're still above 12%. So that strategy has not been effective. That's the first thing. The second thing is that because of our poor management of our investment, which the IMF has pointed out, and which MP Amanza pointed out in her budget speech, you're seeing, as much as 18, $90 billion wasted,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
what has gone on is that there is a strategy in place which is uh, not been done effectively, is not, in my mind, the correct strategy, and so the system or the structure is really failing, and as a result of that failure, you're seeing all the negative effects, which is the high level of inflation and so on. But you're not seeing the positive effects in tremendous job creation. The leader of the PNCR, Mr. Norton, recently commented that the reason that you're seeing all of these temporary jobs created is, that it is the only way they seem to know how to create jobs, and it is an admission of failure on their part in creating jobs for them to be relying on these sorts of temporary jobs. And I would say, are the cost of living effects only being felt by these few thousand folks as much as we want them to receive assistance? I'd also refer back to the MP Aman's comment about the fisher folk, where they're getting 150,000. My question is, why not 155? Why not 160? Is there a specific rationale?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
why is it that they're receiving less, as an example, than the sugar workers who are getting 250? Are they worth, I don't know, 60% less the PVP than the sugar workers? These are the type of nonsensical things that come from a government that has poor planning, poor management, is not metrics driven. I mean, we even heard in the parliament the government say that they expect 4% inflation this year, which I don't know if that was a joke. Maybe I misunderstood his comments. But how can you expect 4% inflation in these times? In no economy, as far as I can tell, you're seeing that lower level of inflation, even before the war in Ukraine. So essentially, it's a story of mismanagement right across the board, and a story of a public investment program which has not done the job. Now, we are talking about it in the short term context, but the IMF is also hinting at a longer term context, which we can get into if that's something that you'd like to talk a bit about. Because we've seen again that the Amalia Falls Hydro project has come up as a point of controversy and a
Mm-hmm.
point of difficulty with the contractor pulling out of the project and it potentially going back to tender. Now, as an opposition, as members of the opposition, as supporters of the opposition, we want as much as possible. We want the country to move in the right direction. So we don't want Amalia to go forward. But from the other end of it, I must admit that I do find it quite entertaining that they continue to struggle with this project, which, I mean, they could have had an equivalent solar farm already built with the time they spent struggling behind this. So it is quite entertaining. I find it to be quite entertaining that they're continuing with Amalia. But the IMF, I think, is hinting that those types of projects have tremendous risks, and that our fast tracking of those types of projects, pushing them to the forefront, is going to lead the country to great losses. This is unfortunate, and we can get into it a bit if you're interested. But that, I think, is the worry that is kind of echoing through that IMF note.
Excellent. Amansi, you want to win there?
Well, I think Elson has summed it up quite correctly, except that I would want to say that it is incompetence. Having worked in government for close to 20 years, one of the things that you understand is that you have to have very strong technocrats
Mm-hmm.
in these ministries. The other thing is that these technocrats could be given correct advice, but it is up to the ministers to accept it.
Correct. Correct.
The reality remains that the government, the PPPC administration, they do not care. And the earlier Guyanese as a whole, even their supporters, understand that they do not care about the poor and working class. They are only interested in enriching themselves and their cronies. The better off we are going to be in terms of crafting political solutions to this problem. The PPPC is bent on domination and control, and that is the other poisonous aspect of their character.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what people must understand is that if you study history, you will see that when you have people who are dictators and autocrats, if you believe that by them oppressing a certain group and eliminating a certain group, that they will stop when they are done, you need to read history
Mm-hmm.
because you must know that that is an appetite that is never curbed and they will turn on you next. But when you say these things, people want to make you, you're fatalistic and all of these things. But history is there to guide us. And what you are seeing is a government that has no plan but to enrich itself and believe that they can hearken back to pre 1992. Our young people don't care about pre 1992. They want to know what are we doing now
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to provide them a better life.
Yeah.
What are we doing now? What are the plans now?
Yeah.
As a young woman, I'm not interested in a part-time job. What am I doing for the rest of the time? And so Barjag, they ought to be ashamed that he is going around unrolling a plan for part-time jobs. When, whereas we showed with some minor adjustments in the public infrastructure program, downscaling it just a little, you could provide immediate relief to every sector of Guyanese in the poor and working class, not just select sectors.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
could provide free tuition so that the money people are using to pay for tuition could be put to sustaining them. And then just maybe I could focus on studying instead of having to also find a part time job to help mommy because she's a single parent.
Yep. Yep.
When you say these things, people deem you a critic, they deem you all kinds of things. But it is time, and this is why programs like the one that Elson does, which I commend everybody to listen to,
Mm-hmm.
because you
Agreed.
understand the nuts and bolts of what is happening. An informed population makes informed decisions. The time for blaming and pointing is so far over. It is sickening that you will be on air talking about a matter of national public importance, and the best some of them could come up with is when y'all were there, what did you do? Who, how do you move a
Mm-hmm.
country forward in that manner?
30 years ago when we used that
And
blackout.
the 30 years ago, where were you?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the vice
Yeah.
president is telling
Yeah.
somebody about 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Forgetting the
Man, I
fact that
wasn't even
you
around back then.
presided.
It was pre 1992. I wasn't even walking around.
But Elson,
But you have to give account for that.
forgetting the fact that his party presided over 23 years of that 30.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. Let's pretend that ain't happened.
Telling you.
Let's pretend that ain't happened. But as you're talking about that, Amanda, you're talking about a strategy to get us out from where we are. He want to talk about that. The man talk about the consolidated for Mansiaga money. Right? He want to talk about that. But Elson, you talked about some of the catalog of if you want to call that remedies, but the foolishness you described as foolishness that they're trying to do. You had a national budget that was read in February and passed. You had, and then from March you saw a whole raft of things happening that was seemingly, but not seemingly, that were not in that budget. So you're wondering what is happening? Like they abandoned their own budget? Was it short sightedness? What it was? And some folks described um, the vice president recently as Santa Claus. He's just going and like off the top of your head, you get an airport, you get a stadium, you get a 150,000, you get 200. There seems to be no rationale. You know, Alison, you just said, why 150? Why not 151? Why not 164? Right? What is the rationale? And then Starbucks News today had an interesting editorial on the new Integrity Commission, which basically it says had its work cut out for it, you know, saying that, there are corrupt deals to be made by virtue of the favors that could be provided, the blind eye turn, or the ubiquitous kickbacks. Sabbath News understands the environment and what comes when the PPP comes. How do you make sense of this as a Guyanese with a soaring cost of living? It seems again, it's more for them boys and less for you. It's more meat on the big boat, cock up your foot and back ball, but less meat for the children at the Waramadong secondary school there. How are we to make sense of life under these people as currently obtains? Elsa.
Well, I'll give you one perspective to add some context to this, and then I'll give you what I think is really going on.
Mhm.
So the first thing we must always remember is We are not in a circumstance where the country is not making money from the huge oil reserves, from the production of oil. We're producing about 50% more than Trinidad's highest ever production. So, but oil production is there, and we're going to have, I believe, like 13 lifts this year,
Mhm.
maybe a little bit less than that. But the point being, this is a time of plenty. This is a time of plenty. This is the highest the oil price has been for many, many
But how come
years.
we feeling it?
So
How come
there's
we
money
feeling it?
available. There's a lot going on, and in terms of production, there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage Guyanese to check the oil price every day. That's something that I do to keep track of what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that is your starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And we must reflect now what things would have been like if we weren't producing oil, if we didn't have that opportunity to get some revenue there. But the flip side of it is that as much as we are producing, we're not seeing it go to the people. We're not seeing an emphasis on the people. Rather, we're seeing an emphasis on infrastructure projects and so on, which some of which are very necessary. But the history of corruption in oil states is unfortunately one which indicates that the purpose of projects tends to be to engage in corruption rather than rather than to actually have any kind of infrastructure put in place. And so what you would see is in countries like Equatorial Guinea and so on, where you have islands, but the islands have roads on them. There's no people that live on the island, but it has a school and an airport and roads. The purpose of the projects is corruption rather than the purpose of the projects being development. So that I think is the best explanation for why you're seeing such a high degree of indifference to the suffering around that Guyanese face. And small cash grants here and there will certainly not be enough. When you look at the scale of the issue, if you have flour alone, if you have wheat alone going up 40% in only a few months, a cash grant here and there is not going to be anywhere near enough to properly deal with that. You need a more robust approach. The only thing that's been put forward by them really to deal with the wheat issues that we should grow wheat locally up in Region 8. I mean, the feasibility of that, first of all, is in question. And second of all, even at the earliest crop, that would be more than probably about a year from now. So you mean to tell me that between now and a year, you don't intend to do anything to really benefit the people in a time of crisis? By next year, the price of wheat may have gone back down, and you may will have engaged in a pointless enterprise. So that is essentially what I think is going on, and the best lens to understand it is that the PvP is so distracted by their efforts to engage in corruption that they're turning a blind eye to the real needs that exist right now and the real pain that is felt by ordinary Guyanese.
Very well.
I think, Sherrod,
Go ahead.
perhaps the greatest indicator of what Elson is saying is how they have completely destroyed the transparency in the procurement system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Yep.
procurement system was set up in such a way that it promoted transparency, it promoted integrity. You check the National Procurement and Tender Administration, it is decimated. All of the qualified people who were there have been laid off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
it is an insidious plot to plunder the national patrimony that belongs to every Guyanese. And they continue to do it because they know that they can go out there, they can raise bait, they can appeal to ethnic insecurity and get away with it. And by the time Guyanese wake up and understand what is happening, their families will be in their homes in Florida, they're going to be in Dubai, and they will be all over. And the poor and working class Guyanese are the ones that will have to stay here. The diplomatic community needs to speak a little louder on the inequalities that are persisting in Guyana, lest
Yeah.
we go down the
Yeah.
road of becoming a
Yeah.
failed state.
Yeah. Yeah.
The US must be particularly concerned because we are on their back door, we are on their back step.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you continue to create in a society a class of have and have nots, you will, a group of people are going to decide one day, I cannot take it anymore.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
nothing to lose, and it will be the beginning of anarchy. And we can poke our heads in the sand all we want, like the proverbial ostrich. It does not negate the fact. One of the things that I love doing is speaking with older people. And a lot of the elders will tell you how uncomfortable they are. They would say to me, Amanda, we are seeing the signs. And this cuts across the political and ethnic divide.
Hmm.
They will tell you we are seeing the signs that led to the troubles of the 60s. And we are praying to God
Signs of the
that these
times.
people course correct and avert this.
Signs of the,
Because
yeah.
when you put people in desperate straits, they do desperate things.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
got to wake up and be mindful that if we do not stop, course correct, and ensure equitable distribution of our resources, we are hastening this beloved country of ours to becoming a failed state.
Yeah.
And we will be the ones to be blamed for it because we refused to do what was necessary to create a better Guyana for the next generation.
Indeed. Elson, Amanza's position there about what they're doing and the advantage they're taking on the system seems to be appealing when one thinks of the fact that, for instance, the Public Procurement Commission, the persons have been appointed but are yet to be sworn in. Perhaps the president is taking, Air Finale, installed president, is taking the same position he's taking about the appointment of the substantive chancellor and chief justice, that when the time is right, he will swear them in, he will appoint, right? But these folks have already been appointed. The Public Procurement Commission, all he has to do is to swear them in. But we see, him taking his own sweet time, as we say, being very pedestrian on this. But as we're talking about the Procurement Commission, whatever happened to the Judicial Service Commission, the Public Service Commission, the Teaching Service Commission, the Local Content Secretariat? Whatever happened to the Petroleum Commission? As I said, and even local government elections that is long overdue. So Amanza's, presentation and intervention there seems very appealing. That these boys up to no good. As we wrap up.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the thing to always remember throughout this is, uh, it is a duty as president, is a duty of anyone who is the head of a country to uphold the institutions of the country,
Hmm.
right? That's one of your sacred duties. And so whether or not you agree with the stance that this opposition leader or that opposition leader may have taken, it is your duty to try as much as you can to get all of your institutions up and functioning. So that is something that I really think is an area that the president could have done much more, and it's something that I would like to see any president treat with urgency. You should absolutely treat with urgency the appointment of these commissions, and you should not allow a disagreement such as saying, "Oh, this they don't recognize me," and so on,
Hmm.
as holding you back from that. You have a responsibility to the nation, not just a responsibility to a particular group or so on. So you have to uphold the institutions of the country, no matter what. So I think that is something that every president, a standard that every president should hold themselves to, and will be held to, by their peers and by history. So that is one thing that I would say about what has gone on. I think that these commissions, the various commissions, are integral to the function of the society, and that as much as possible needs to be done to ensure that they are up and functioning. Of course, the Public Procurement Commission the commissioners need to be sworn in as soon as possible. And I would say that us having gone for so long without a Public Procurement Commission has created in me a deep sense of alarm. We've had multiple budgets. We've had hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, of billions of dollars be
Yep.
spent
Yep.
without a public procurement commission, which is mandated by the Constitution. It's not us saying, "Oh, we feel like there should be a public procurement commission." This is something that's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
So, I would say that this is an area that more focus should have gone on, because it is a vital area for the function of the country more broadly. However, if that is not the PVP's focus, if the PVP's focuses rather engaging in procurement fraud, then the PUP will definitely not want to see those types of commissions in place. And if their focus is on PUP's focus is on dominating the public service and the judiciary and so on, they'll certainly not want those institutions and commissions in place. I take this opportunity to remind the public that it is the coalition when it was in office that first put in place the Public Procurement Commission, despite it
After a
being
long
something that
hiatus,
was
yeah.
in the constitution under
Yep.
the PUP. They did not activate it. They did not. So that just gives you an understanding. And you know the question you mentioned earlier. It's important to ask questions. Well, I asked this question: why didn't they activate it when they were in power? Why is it that we have to come and activate it? Number one, and number two, why on this go around when they're again in office, it took so long for it to be activated? That speaks to me of a trend by the PUP
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
institutions, and there's a lot of evidence to that end. So yeah, it's very concerning. But one of the things I would say to Guyanese, it's sad, but hopefully will give you a ray of optimism. Is it reminds me of this film Brewster's Millions, where a man inherits a huge fortune, but he has to spend a large amount of it early on and lose all of it to kind of teach him a lesson about finances. And right now we're going through a period where we're seeing demonstrated before our very eyes. The PvP is not changed at all. The
Yeah.
governance is
Yeah.
not changed at all from the 23 years that I grew up under them. And so I think the Guyanese who thought that, because they got put out of power, when they come back in power,
They learned
they're
something.
going to they're going to behave themselves. I heard that argument. I think that argument has been definitively disproved. I
Yep.
think that
Yep.
nobody believes that anymore.
Yep.
And I think that if you're going to continue to vote for the PUP, you have to vote for them full well in knowledge that they will not engage in good governance practices whatsoever, and that large portions of this money will be stolen. Our appeal to you is simple. We will ensure that all of this money that they intend to steal will instead find its way into the Guyanese economy and into your pockets as citizens. That is what we are going to do. We're not going to be allowing the PvP to steal all the national patrimony and get away with it, feeling calm and comfortable, but rather through being in office and putting in place the right policies, you will be the beneficiary instead of the PvP. If you prefer the PvP to benefit rather than yourself, that's, I guess, a personal choice, but it will not be something that the coalition does when it is back in office.
Couldn't add anything there. Couldn't add anything there. Man, so final word, go
I
see.
I I so fully agree with Elson, and I think for the 3 effective years that the coalition was in government, what you saw happening was a concerted effort to build institutions, because there is an understanding that sound institutions, it is the basis for strong government. Institutions that are able to function free of political pressure are the bedrock of a democratic society.
Mhm.
And so you saw
Yep.
a concerted effort to build our institutions. Let me tell you, the PPP does nothing by accident. Everything that they do is strategic and well thought out. So you have the Procurement Commission named and agreed to from how long?
Oh, two
Yet the
months now.
two that they place emphasis on swearing in is the Integrity Commission and the Police Service Commission. Because guess why? They will use the Police Service Commission to control the law enforcement machinery, to control promotions within the force, and to foster a force where their bidding must be done or else. The second thing that you are going to see is that they're going to use the Integrity Commission to silence their critics and to smear and to malign anybody who will speak up against them. And so it is not by chance that it is those two commissions that they have sought to empanel in such a hurry. When you have far more pressing appointments like the Chief Justice and the Chancellor to be made, like the Public Procurement Commission, which has a mandate to oversee, it is their tool for control and
Yeah.
domination. And
Yeah.
as soon as these two commissions get going, you will remember that I said it on the 6th of June. You will begin to see them smearing people in the public, tarnishing people in the public. They will use those two organs
Yeah.
to do that, to control law enforcement, and to silence critics through the use of the Integrity Commission. So we are in for a rough time. And unless we determine within ourselves that enough is enough and that we will not put up with this type of governance and with this failed governance, and that we take measures to continue to educate our citizens, because I keep saying informed citizens make informed decisions. And we remove this pattern of ethnic voting and we vote on policies, because there is no doubt up to now that as it relates to sound policy, the AP and UAFC outclasses the PPPC by miles. They're only about corruption, incompetence, domination, and control. And as Elson said, if you knowingly go and put your X next to that, you are complicit in the fate of Guyana being a failed state.
Well said, well said, well said, well said. Folks, unfortunately, that's our time today. We really want to thank Amanza, Member of Parliament, y'all know Amanza, everything about Amanza, for joining us today. Elson Lowe, the man who's the expert in these issues, economics and some other things as well, for joining our program today, making sense of these issues for us. Thank you so much. And we were only able to bite off a small part of that IMF report. Basically, them talking about the money being pumped into the economy, how it has the potential, and it's already doing that, driving up the inflation rate, providing hardship for Guyanese, driving up the cost of living, and the poor policies, if you want to call it even policies, being put in place by the PPP, trying to bring down that high cost of living that we have currently. Everything going up, chicken, you name it, Bora, everything going up in the market. All the sugar, milk, gas, everything going up with no end in sight. Again, Elson Lowe, thanks for joining us. And Elson has a fantastic program. As we said when the program started, we commend to you guys the lowdown. You guys, we commend that program to you guys. And Elson, we really want to have you back as we bite into, and as Randy says, or other colleague who joined us yesterday told us, Randy likes to unpack these issues for the Guyanese people. We try to make sense of them, because in lots of cases it's just pure madness. There's no method to it. It's just madness. Elson and Manzo, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on. That show is on all the coalition's pages. It's from 7 to 8 p.m. on Tuesdays and on Saturday nights. So look forward to getting your viewers on the lowdown so they can get the lowdown.
Yes, and we commend it. We commend it. Thanks again, Elson. Amanza? All right, that's going to do it for us today, folks. Thanks for joining us, each and every one of you. That's going to do it for us today, said. Thanks for joining us, guys. We see you guys out there. This is why we say, smash the emoji button, share the damn live stream. Valid, credible information. Manzi said it best. Informed citizens make informed decisions. Informed citizens make informed decisions. And we really, really want to thank you guys for being with us for the last hour or so as we examine this issue here. And, we're just going to keep pressing forward in spite of the nonsense these chatterbots and trench crackers doing. Robert Fox Archer, we see you there. And Urban Don Cook, we see you as well. And Maureen Coppins Williams. Here's linking, folks. Smash that emoji button. Share the damn live stream. Valid, credible information. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys back in the ring this evening at 8. Bella Mona, we see you. We see you, Robert Pops. Thanks for sticking around. Maureen Coppins Williams. Folks, do remember to partner with us. Oh, we took a beating last month. But we out here still. We out here. Do partner with us. 627-6963 is our MMG number. It's also our WhatsApp number. We're on Zelle. We got PayPal. We got you name it. Zelle, PayPal, Cash App. We got MMG. We're available via MoneyGram, via Western Union, folks. No amount is too small. This program is about you. It is publicly funded, so we talk the things. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to see you guys back at 8 in the ring. Thanks for joining us, folks. Stay safe out there. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Stay safe, guys. Good to see you, Brenda Brackett, Stacy Stahl, Stacy and Stahl, Marilyn King. Good to see you, folks. Mason Powell, Hulda Thomas. Good to see you, Hulda Thomas. Great to see each and every one of you. Share the live before you go and smash that emoji button, folks. See you soon.